Hey guys, thanks for joining me for this video. I want to talk about a piece of legislation in Ontario right now called Bill 156, Security from Trespass and Protecting Food Safety Act. So I don't really want to break down this bill or look at it too extensively, but I will give you just the basic summary in case you were not from Ontario or you haven't heard about this bill yet. Essentially, we're looking at just increased fines for trespassers on animal protection zones. So first offense being maximum of $15,000, and any offense thereafter would be $25,000, and these offenses could be even, or these fines rather, could be increased even further given certain conditions. The animal protection zones is a very broad statement. So they define it in several different ways. But essentially, the part that really gets to me is the fact that they are directly attacking the Save Movement organization and other organizations that stand outside on public property, rightfully protesting and bearing witness to animals on slaughter trucks or transport trucks. So what we do in the Save Movement, if you're not familiar, we all line up on the road once we see a transport truck coming in, and we put up the peace sign. We have a sign that says, "No hate for truckers, 2 minutes with the animals, please." And basically, we have someone stand in front of the truck. Usually, the truck stops willingly, depends on where you are. And then activists will just go onto one side of the truck and bear witness to the animals. We like to take videos and photos to share with the public. There has never been, a case of a biosecurity hazard when it comes to animal rights activists, especially not with the Save Movement, but not even with the open rescues. Some groups will go into farms and they'll film footage of the farm animals actually at the farm dwellings. So they do trespass during this to get footage of the animals in these conditions and just being exploited in general. So there are already fines in place for this. So basically what this act, or what this bill is seeking to do, is to increase fines to further deter activists and to stop us from exposing the truth, to stop us from stopping the trucks. So they have no problem, let's just get this out of the way, they have no problem with the time that we waste for them, okay? There is absolutely no problem with that because, they'll go to extensive measures to make sure that we don't get to bear witness. I've personally encountered this on many occasions. Maybe some of you that also volunteer with the Save Movement can relate to this. But essentially, once the slaughterhouse sees that we're there, or perhaps the event was exposed publicly, they will stop all the trucks from coming. They will hold them up at, some other location until they hear that the activists are gone, and then they will send the trucks through. So they don't care about wasting their time. They care about us exposing the truth. So this bill basically is trying to pretend that, it's a risk for the animals, for, public health, all of these things, for the farmers' safety, which, again, there has never been an instance where activists are going on to farmers' actual homes, like dwellings. Usually the home is very, very far away from the farm itself because it smells very bad. So activists don't storm into the farm home. They don't care about, they understand that these farmers have been indoctrinated into this society. They have nothing against the farmers. They have everything against the exploitation of animals, and that's what they're seeking to expose. They are not a biosecurity risk. The real biosecurity risk is, those people that are going from farm to farm to farm to farm. So veterinarians, inspectors, etc. People that are getting, feces on their boots and carrying it to another farm. Us activists, when we're going into one farm, I've never personally done this, but if activists are going to go into a farm, that's the only farm they're going into. They're not carrying any bacteria on their boots or whatever that is going to affect the animals. They're not carrying bovine viruses, okay, or any other virus for these animals. Now let's look at the person who is pushing forward this bill. So Ernie Hardman, conservative, Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. So he was the owner and operator of Hardman Feed Limited. And let's look at someone else who has been rather outspoken about this bill as well. So that is the nephew of Ernie Hardman, John Van Thoth. So John and his wife Rhea owned and operated a dairy farm just outside of Arlington from 1984 to 2012. They stopped allegedly because none of their children wanted to become farmers. He currently owns and operates his own crop business. So we can take a look at what John has to say about Bill 156.
Once again, a good opportunity to talk about agriculture and farming and on Bill 156, anti-trespassing. I made it clear in my comments yesterday, we support everything in this bill that protects biosecurity and protects farm families in their place of business and their home. We fully support that. What we brought up is there's some instances in this bill that after it passes second reading and goes to committee, that we should take a long, hard look at the unintended consequences. And one of those is with the retroactive trespassing provisions, where you can be charged 2 years after under this bill. This could be seen as anti-whistleblower. And as a farmer, as someone from rural Ontario, I am very concerned that all the hard work that farmers have done and the processing sector has done to defend their reputation, which is stellar, could be tainted when something is perceived as anti-whistleblower legislation is taken to the Supreme Court of Canada, and it could very well lose. And I made it very clear in this House yesterday that you can't buy trust. Now, the Minister of Agriculture and his parliamentary assistants mentioned every farm leader in the province, how they fully support this bill. But if this bill is challenged, if that specific section is challenged and loses in court, then the opponents of agriculture will be able to point at every one of those farm leaders and say, but you supported this. I'm telling the government that when this passes second reading, asking the government work with the farm community and make sure that this bill is rock solid and that it cannot be challenged. Because there are sections that it appears, you could make it appear that agriculture is something to hide, and it doesn't. We need to make sure the wording of the bill does not leave that crack open.
All right, and then let's look at Toby Barrett. Toby Barrett is conservative. He received a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Guelph in 1968 and a Master of Science degree from the Ontario Agriculture College in 1974. He later worked as a teacher of a high school and has been a partner in Farm Lee Farms since 1980. Toby actually owns and operates his own farm in Simcoe. So this here is a great website. My friends put this together, stopbill156.com. Just debunks a lot of the stuff that the industry is trying to push forward. And I say the industry because by no means are the industry and the government, the political leaders, not connected, as we can clearly see from the people that are pushing forward this piece of legislation. It is fairly apparent that there is a massive conflict of interest happening, and there is an illegitimate bias occurring. The politicians promoting this bill have claimed that they have communicated with animal rights groups. This is simply untrue. They have stated that this bill is to protect animals. This is also untrue. This bill seeks to silence whistleblowers of all kinds. This bill seeks to silence the truth. This bill seeks to protect industry lives and profits. It is very clear that the people that are promoting this bill, that have actually written this bill and pushed this bill forward, are profiting off of the animal exploitation industries.
I have never been so proud as today to say that I'm a farmer. And I know what you guys want. There's a track in Northern Ontario, in Sudbury Downs. Vanessa couldn't be there today, but she's fully support a lot of my constituents, and on my farm, we sell hay to the horse industry. And we know there's jobs, and we know that this industry is vital.
John is someone who's very interesting because he's very, very outspoken about all of this, and very outspoken at the fact that he is a farmer and that he is for farmers. And, you know, doesn't directly say that he is against animal rights activists, as far as I have seen, but very clearly is against animal rights activists, very clearly is against us exposing the cruelty of these industries or exposing any animal exploitation of any kind. Now, maybe you're someone watching this who isn't an animal rights activist at all, and you're a bit, you know, put off by this, you're a bit confused. Let me ask you, you know, have you ever seen slaughterhouse footage in a commercial? Or have you ever seen the tail docking, the mutilation, the artificial insemination? Have you seen all these standard practices within the industry be advertised to you? No. They aren't going to show us the truth. They want us to have that fairy tale image of a farm, you know, the grazing cows, the happy chickens, happy pigs rolling in the mud, you know, animals that come from a happy life, and then we eat them because it's the circle of life, and we just eat them. So they very much want us disconnected from the process. You know, if you really think about it, if you haven't seen all this footage really in your mind, and this was how it was for me, you see, you know, the happy green acres, the happy animals, and then you see the product on your plate. And there's that little in-between part, that little, you know, piece that's missing. And that is the slaughter. Okay, so once again, these animals are transported for many, many hours. They're often dehydrated when they arrive to the slaughterhouse. Some are even dead. And, you know, they often have to wait in these holding pens once they arrive at the slaughterhouse for hours until it is finally their turn. They can smell the blood, they can smell the fear, they can hear the screams, they know what's about to happen to them. They're forced with electric prods, they're being smacked with paddles, they're forced to enter a hallway in which they are stunned. So for cows, it's a bolt gun to the head. For chickens, they're hung up by their legs and electrocuted through water. For pigs, it is often that they are put into a gas chamber where they slowly suffocate. And then they are all strung up by the legs and slit across the throat. So the industry wants to hide this from us because they understand that most people, you know, care about animals. Most people morally consider animals. A lot of people have cats and dogs at their home. People care about animals. They don't want to see animals harmed. So once people wake up to the fact that we can't get, you know, a piece of flesh on our plate without an animal being harmed, then their business goes under. And it's already starting to do that. Dairy is in massive decline right now. Okay? They're scared. That's what this bill is. They're scared. And, you know, I don't blame them because what we're doing is working. And they've done everything that they possibly can to stop us. Here in, you know, my city and city surroundings, the truckers have clearly been told to try to intimidate us. They, you know, sometimes try to run us over or almost do run us over, or they just, you know, simply pretend as if they're going to. They honk the horn for a long time as loud as they can. I've seen the trucks pull forward, pull back, pull forward, pull back to agitate the animals so we leave, which we do because we don't want to agitate the animals. That's the last thing we want. We want 2 minutes to show the public who they are eating, to remind them that there's a face behind who they are eating, and, you know, they can't have that. And I'm making this video because this needs to be exposed. People aren't paying attention. These people have openly come out and said that they are, you know, not directly said this, but indirectly said they are profiting off of this industry. And they are the ones making these decisions. They are the ones pushing forward this bill. There's such thing as integrity. And when someone has integrity, they're supposed to claim when they have a bias. They're supposed to point that out and say, you know, there's a bias here. I have vested interest, and therefore I should not be the person making this sort of decision. So, for example, if, you know, a judge got assigned a case where it's his sister who is being, you know, accused of murder, that judge should take it upon himself to claim that he has a bias and to push that case onto someone else, because it is not fair for him to judge that case. It is the same exact thing in this. Why are we letting people profiting off of animal exploitation industries put forward legislations regarding, you know, I can see the trespassing thing, but the stopping trucks, that infringes on our rights. We have the right to protest lawfully, and when we do these sort of vigils, is what we call them, that is within our rights to do that, and they're trying to take our rights away from us, okay? And if you think that this is only about animal rights, it's not. This is going to start applying to other places where there needs to be, you know, whistleblowers. So nursery homes, you know, there have been cases in the States where they've passed legislation such as this, and then it has transferred over to places such as nursery homes where abuse cases are happening, and they can't be exposed because they aren't allowed to. They're gonna get penalized. They're trying to scare us. And the funny thing about this legislation is it's not gonna scare a single activist away. We're all gonna keep going. We're all gonna keep doing what we're doing. I'm not gonna stop doing everything I do. Doing vigils with the Save movement is the most important activism I do. Because not only do I get to expose, you know, this industry to the public, but I also get to come face to face with the victims and remind myself who I am fighting for. You know, you can watch all the videos online, you can do all that research, but nothing compares to being there and seeing the terror in their eyes and knowing that they are sentient, they are conscious, and they know what's going to happen, and knowing everything that they've been through. These animals that we meet are some of the most innocent, docile animals you'll ever come across. And most of them have been suffering from day one. Most of them have been mutilated on their first day of life. And they've lived in terrible conditions. And if you want to look into this, you know, this isn't me, what is it called? Sensationalizing what happens to animals. It's not. Look into the standard practices in Ontario. Pigs are allowed, pigs not only are allowed, but they are almost always living on complete concrete. The mother is restricted to a farrowing crate where she can't even turn around. And the pigs are killed at 6 months. Free range, organic, humane, it means nothing to the animals. Have you ever seen a free range chicken farm? It's awful. It's awful, guys. You know, watch Dominion. Go to dominionmovement.com if you don't know what I'm talking about. You know, and if that's too long for you, you can look at some of my older videos where I'm doing these vigils, and you can just, you know, those aren't graphic at all. It's just outside of the slaughterhouse when they're in the trucks, and just take a look into their eyes and tell me what you see. Because when I look into their eyes, I see broken souls. Absolute broken souls. We don't have to do this to them. We can survive off plants. So, the point of this video was not to get upset and to talk about, you know, the terrible suffering of animals, but it was to point out the utter stupidity of this bill, and not only that, but the major conflict of interest happening within it that no one seems to be talking about, and I feel that needs to be talked about. The only way this bill will not pass or will be amended is not through our political leaders. It is not through, you know, reconciling with them and building bonds, writing letters, etc. I'm not saying that if you do that stuff that you're doing it wrong, and that's not what I'm trying to say. It's not that I haven't done that too. I have. But that's not how we're gonna win. The way that we have to win is public outcry. Blast this information. Blast the conflict of interest. Oppose Bill 156. Okay? Protest. Do whatever you gotta do, but make people aware of what is happening and make people aware of the precedent that this sets. This is not an okay bill. This is literally infringing on our rights. And the public, consumers, have a right to know where their food is coming from. We need more transparency in everything that is happening, but especially in the food system. Okay, in the UK, they're setting up cameras in all the farms and slaughterhouses. Why aren't we doing that? Why are we instead trying to censor the public? You know, if I post a video from one of these slaughterhouses that I often go to, if I tag the location, it instantly gets censored. There's nothing graphic in it. It's just the animals on the truck. They don't want you guys to remember that these animals are individuals. They are. And if you don't believe they are, look at your dog, or if you have ever met a dog or a cat, you know that they have a personality. Pigs, cows, chickens, they're the same. They're all animals. They're all sentient. But they want us disconnected from the process. They want us disconnected from these animals. You know, I used to think pigs were gross because that's how I was conditioned. Pigs are one of the smartest animals. Not that intelligence has any, you know, factor over moral consideration. The fact that these animals suffer, that should be the only thing that we should consider morally. They suffer, and they have a desire to live. They don't want to die. There's no humane way to kill someone who doesn't want to die. So, ultimately, speak out, guys. Defend animals. Expose the truth. Because they don't deserve this, and the public doesn't deserve the lack of transparency that we're currently receiving.